Each week, nearly a dozen movies are released theatrically. 40 films a month, more than 400 a year. That's a plethora of cinema. Too much cinema. You'd have to be an addict to see all that. But don't fret. We've got you covered. This is CinemAddicts.
Hey everyone, what's up? It's a new week of CinemAddicts. This is CinemAddicts episode 270. We are covering the movies Maria, Nutcrackers, Heavier Trip, and Reinas. This is for movies coming out, releasing the week of Friday, November 29th. I'm joined by my better Eric Holmes. Eric, how have you been? What's going on? How's your back?
Back's doing good. Doing pretty good.
How did you cure your back? Just an excess of pills?
I looked it up. I think it was just an inflamed disc.
Yeah?
And the inflammation finally went down. And
massage place for someone massage you in the back or something? Or
no, didn't need that. But I've been doing like a bunch of stretches and lots of ibuprofen. But eventually the swelling went down. Whatever. There wasn't any swelling that I could tell other than the pain. But just kind of doing looking online, seeing the symptoms, that makes sense, and that's exactly what I got. So it must be that. And after a while, swelling went down, and still going easy, still lifting with my back and not my legs to keep the strength up. Don't do that. That's actually a bad idea. Yeah, just trying to go easy on it, doing stretches and working out pretty good.
This is nothing by the way, for the people who are listening to us on Cinemax on audio, the audio version. Thank you, listeners, for our podcast. We have a bunch of movies to get to, but most importantly, Eric, what do you think of the shirt? This Thanksgiving. It's a sort of a Hawaiian shirt, but it's not in the Hawaiian colors. It's sort of these bluish, weird off blue colors with some white flourishes and
like a dark turquoise or something.
I'm going for a Magnum PI look. Magnum PI. I'd play one of Magnum PI's, like Larry Manetti. I think that's the name of the actor in it. But they used to always wear these.
Yes. You're like the character in the movie that's like a drug dealer, but also a snitch. And it's like, hey man, I didn't say nothing. It's cool. So doing the Greg Glad-handing thing, but then they end up shooting you in the head anyway.
I know, that's very good. I would play that role in a heartbeat. Right? Eric thinks I'm a glad-hander. I'm so much of a glad-hander that I'm not even going to file a lawsuit on people who probably have stolen my voice on AI. Eric, can you tell our listeners what's going on with that?
I'm pretty sure that's a thing, because I also looked that up. Apparently, the YouTube uses like AI generated voices, and you type it in or speak it, and then they got the AI generated voice. Greg, you have your voice is all over the internet.
Really?
It does not. It stands to reason that you would be the one of the voices that the AI has pulled from to put into that. That's how generative AI works. It doesn't generate it. It steals it from other things and reapplies it to something else. So I think that voice, it's very likely that voice that we heard that sounds like yours is your voice that AI has chopped up and made to
is it uncanny that when you listen to, it seems like you're listening to me when you're listening to some Shark Tank reel or something on.
And what I think is I am listening to you. I'm just listening to your voice remixed by an AI algorithm. So I think you should look into that, because that they're basically taking your likeness and using it without your permission.
Okay, Eric, I do not know what Eric is talking
about. But if we're not going to worry about that, that's fine. I'm going to start singing songs on the podcast, and we're not going to cut them out, because you know what? Intellectual property means nothing in this world.
Look, Eric has a good point. That's
YouTube's penance for stealing your voice. We get to sing songs and not delete them.
You can sing happy birthday as much as you want.
Well, that's in public domain.
I know. I'm kidding on that. So, but yes, if you do hear someone that sounds like me, it's not me. So
it is though.
It is though. So here, the reason why Eric and I are going back and forth is, if you want to hear some of this more back and forth stuff, listen to Eric and I do a review of Croupier. Croupier and Shopper are our reviews for this month's Patreon episode. Eric and I just did it, recorded it. Bruce Purkey will do his review of Chopper and Croupier on Patreon in about a day or so. I'm going to smash them together, and that will be our November episode for our Patreon. Spoiler stuff, and not spoiler stuff, just like a little tease, Eric. What can people expect from this episode?
You and I going head to head.
Yes, I like that.
Knockout, drag out fight. What we should do is we should have just recorded us saying Bruce's reviews and thoughts on it, and then just went on YouTube and used Bruce and had them AI Bruce's voice on ours. So it's like Bruce is there with us.
Eric, okay, I don't know why you're complaining about this because pretty soon you and I will be up in the attic with Bruce Purkey. We're going to be the Cinem-Attics. We're going to be the Cinem-Attic. We're going to be in the attic in your room. Yeah. Well, people named Greg, Eric, Holmes, and Bruce Purkey, the real living version, the AI versions of us will be recording this pretty soon, sooner than you think. That's why I am not getting any money, because I am now kowtowing to just AI takeover, Eric.
Yeah.
And here you are. You still want to do that human fight, huh? You still want to fight against it. You want to have that human spirit situation. We're going to be up in the attic ourselves. What do you think?
I mean, that is why I've been giving Bruce people food, because I know that that's where my future lies. So
I'm sorry, folks. We're not. I don't mean to poo-poo. I don't not the real poo-poo. This is a family show. I don't want to poo-poo the thought of the humans trying. Humans will triumph over AI. Let's be sunny about this, because we have some really good movies to share. Before we get into it, right, Eric? We have some good movies this week.
I'm familiar with AM, so it's not looking good. Read, I have no mouth and I must scream and be very afraid of what's to come in the future.
Well, Doomsday might be around the corner, but hopefully in the interim, we can enjoy some good movies, specifically for this week. Eric Holmes is a sole person of this movie he is a sole watcher of a film called Reinas. It is Switzerland's official 2025 Oscar submission for Best International Film. And I don't know, Eric, you decided to tackle this indie drama. I'm going to just very quickly read a plot synopsis, and then you can go off from there. Lucia and Aurora are about to leave their country forever with their mother. They need their absentee father to sign the exit papers. Now, before he signs the papers, the father, his name's Carlos, he wants to make sure that Lucia and Aurora have a good time, I'm assuming, before they leave. So he spends time with his two daughters, and I'm assuming Reinas is a coming-of-age story for these women, Lucia and Aurora. The director is Claudia Reinicki, and it, quote, subtly weaves a tale of shifts and sacrifices that shows whatever the familial configuration, strength and loss are necessary parts of growth. So it opens in New York and Los Angeles November 29th. Since it is Switzerland's official Oscar submission, we're assuming Reinas is a very good movie. Eric Holmes, take it away. Tell us what you thought of Reinas.
Yeah, I actually thought that was a different movie that was on there. But if it's this one, totally makes sense, because this movie's pretty damn good. So the dad is like an absentee father, as far as I can tell. It's one of those things where what was that movie that we saw with the artist, where the homeless guy was going around, and you find out that people don't like him, but you're
exhibiting
not sure
forgiveness.
There you go.
Exhibiting forgiveness.
It has that sort of thing where the dad comes around, you can tell the mom begrudgingly lets him there. The daughters are not at all excited to see him. So you know something happened in the past, but you're not sure what. And then you find out that he must be an absentee father, like he just wasn't part of their lives for one reason or another. And this is kind of a story you've seen before. This is just one of those you've seen it before, but it's done well. I guess Reinas means queens. So there you go. He keeps calling his daughters his queens, so that makes sense. But anyway, he decides that he wants to, his ex-wife suggests that he spend some time with them. And he's like, yeah, I guess I could do that. And also, while you're doing that, we need to sign this paper. It's like, yeah, we'll get to that. And he just kind of basically shoehorns himself into the life of his daughters right at the worst possible time, because the mom wants to go to, I think it's like Minnesota or Michigan, or she's going somewhere in the United States for a job opportunity, and she's bringing the daughters with her. And that's, she needs the dad to sign the consent form to bring the daughters with him. He doesn't do that. And basically, since he's spending time with his daughters now, as opposed to any other time during their lives, they're kind of confused, like, oh, maybe I want to stay home with the dad. Maybe I don't want to go with the mom. There was that whole dynamic. This kind of seems neither here nor there, but there's a bit of a curfew for everybody. Like, you can't be outside at a certain time of day. That comes into play later on. Basically, with the absentee father just now getting into their lives, it's basically causing a problem. It's causing a problem definitely for the mom. And turning the daughters against their mom because they don't understand what's going on. And yeah, it's a good family dynamic movie. I really like this a lot. I think you and Bruce would like it even more. And the fact that it's a submission for the Oscars makes sense because it's a good one.
Okay, cool. Reinas is set in Lima, Peru, the year 1992. Again, like Eric was saying, it's Switzerland's official 2025 Oscar submission for Best International Film. Eric Holmes, your final thought and rating on Reinas.
Yeah, just again, a movie you've seen 1,000 times before. This is just a really good version of that. I'll give it 4.5. I feel like you and Bruce might give this a 5-star.
What? Okay, why would Bruce and I give it 5 stars and you only give it 4.5 stars? By the way, it's still a great rating.
Yeah.
Are you saying that me and Bruce are more sensitive than you are and you're just a cold soul, or what is that?
You guys dig these family dramas a lot more than I do. This is kind of like if Bruce saw a Scott Adkins action movie, it's like, oh, this is pretty good. I'll give this 4 stars. But I know for a fact Eric's going to give this 6.9 stars. It's kind of like
very good.
This is more in your guys' wheelhouse than it is mine, but I still enjoyed it quite a bit.
Okay.
Well, enjoyed it, air quotes. It was a good movie. It was not always enjoyable because some of the stuff that happens, but it was a good movie.
Well, look, you gave it 4.5 stars. What made it tip over the 3.5, 4 area for you? Because family dramas is not your jam.
Yeah.
Was it just because of the value added setting or the performances?
It was just written well, because normally like the female character, like the mom character, would be a stick in the mud, and in this she is, but there's a very clear reason why she's like, look, spend time with our daughters. That's what I want you to do. But now you're starting to mess with my life. And you're starting to mess with their life just because all of a sudden now you think you're a father. She's not being overbearing just because the writer doesn't know how to write a female character, and they just got to make her that like she's her anger and frustration completely makes sense. And I think no one would fault her for being frustrated in the way that she is.
Eric, I am sold. Thanks to you, I'm going to watch Reinas. I mean, I'm like, Eric, thanks to you, I'm going to do my freaking job. But Eric, great job. 4.5 stars from Eric Holmes. Again, it is in New York and Los Angeles starting November 29th. Hopefully, it will open up to wider markets in the coming weeks. Great job on that, Eric Holmes. And I'm going to ask you right now for this one, your thoughts on Angelina Jolie. Do you like Angelina Jolie?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know her personally, but...
Do you like her work? Do you watch her movies?
I think my favorite one was Changeling.
Okay. She received an Oscar nomination for that, by the way. Yes.
Yeah. That was Clint Eastwood direct that one, I think.
Yes, very good. Yes, he did.
Yeah, Changeling was really good.
And you also liked Wanted? I'm sure you liked Wanted too.
Oh, yeah. Wanted was stupid, but it was like good stupid. Speaking of good stupid, Gone in 60 Seconds.
I knew you were going there. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, she usually whenever
the fire movie. Remember the fire jumping the movie?
Oh yeah, the Taylor Sheridan movie.
Things to do before you. I mean, I forgot what it's called, but it was
yeah. It had a long title. It was a cool title, but I can't remember what it was. But
that's another cool movie. Yeah.
The only thing I can remember watching her in that I actively hated was Tomb Raider movies. Could not stand those.
Oh, you didn't like the Tomb Raider? Okay.
I hated them.
Okay.
Hated them.
I haven't seen Eternals. I have not seen Eternals yet.
Eternals is pretty good.
Okay.
A good metric for comic book movies is that if the comic book movie fans hate it, it's probably really good. Okay. They did something interesting. No.
The movie that Eric and I are sort of tongue-tied over is Those Who Wish Me Dead.
There you go.
Here's the thing, okay? The reason why I'm asking you all these questions is I wonder what the audience will be for Angelina Jolie's latest film, Maria. Maria is a movie which stars Angelina Jolie as legendary opera singer Maria Callas. And it's directed by Pablo Larraín. Larraín's previous movies is he did Spencer, okay, from a couple of years ago, that's starring Kristen Stewart as Lady Di. And then he also directed Natalie Portman in Jackie. Maria is his trilogy, the ending of that trilogy, and Maria spotlights Maria Callas, again played by Angelina Jolie. The catch, though, is this movie centers not on her entire life. It focuses on the last week of her life. She died at 53 from heart failure. She spent the last several years of her life in her apartment in Paris. And a big part of the movie has her just dealing with members from her house staff. There's one who's sort of a butler who handles all her medical appointments and is the heart and soul of just making sure everything runs well in her apartment. And there's sort of a running joke of how he and his fellow staff member, they have to keep on moving the piano in her lavish apartment because she wants it a certain way, and she's very demanding. But a lot of the movie deals with her relationship with them. And also there are a lot of flashbacks with her relationship with shipping magnate Aristotle Onassis, her performances of her being an icon. And there is a lot of opera performances in Maria. And I'm assuming, Eric, this probably is not going to be a movie that you're going to watch, or it might not be even in your purview, even if it gets some Oscar consideration. Opera, not your thing?
I mean, I don't hate opera. I appreciate good singers. I mean, we're karaoke, so. You know.
Oh, of course, yeah. But, you might enjoy Callis, Maria. You might enjoy Maria because there's a lot of good singing. This might actually entice you a little bit more. They mix the voice of Maria Callas along with the real voice of Angelina Jolie. So the singing performances in the movie, part Callas, part Jolie. I don't hear that much where you actually have a really, who knows, maybe AI did it, right? It's like sort of a mixture. It's a mixture of Jolie and Callas together.
Oh, if they use AI in this, I'm definitely not watching.
Well, there's no AI use in this. So I apologize. There's no lawsuits Netflix on me, but
I am kind of curious. I think I understand what you're saying, but I would be curious to see how they pull that off.
Well, I think the only thing that will actually may actually reel Eric Holmes in for Maria is the screenwriter is Stephen Knight. He is the creator of Peaky Blinders. He also directed and wrote a movie called Locke, and which would really pull you in is he wrote and directed another movie that I think me, you, and Bruce love called Serenity. So he is a screenwriter for Maria.
I'm in.
And Stephen Knight also.
Wait.
Yes. Yes.
Matthew McConaughey movie.
Yeah. Anne Hathaway.
Was done by the same guy that did Locke.
Yes. Isn't that cool?
That is amazing. How did I not know that already?
No, don't worry. I just did some last minute look on Stephen Knight. You and I both know that Stephen Knight did Locke. That's such a great movie.
I mean, we went pretty deep into Serenity, and I know for a fact we had seen Locke at that point.
Right.
Did we bring that up and I just forgot about it?
I'm going to say that we did bring it up because I don't want to make me, you, or Bruce look like a bunch of you-know-whats.
Well, I mean, we recorded it. The record's out there.
Oh, no, folks. We're going to
have to go back.
Don't look at that recording of Serenity.
Yeah, go back and check out the Serenity review and see how dumb we were to not.
We were. Stop using the word were. We're in the present. How dumb are.
See how dumb we are because we did bring that up multiple times and I just don't remember it.
Oh, come on. Don't say that. So anyways, all of these elements will hopefully be interesting enough for you to even give Maria a shot. Here's the thing. It's only playing in select theaters now, November 27th, as we were recording this. So this is a week of November 29th. So November 27th, it was released in theaters. Most of you will be able to see Maria on Netflix starting December 11th. Angelina Jolie, Eric was mentioning some of his favorite Angelina Jolie movies. Like a moron, I still haven't seen Changeling. I did love her in Girl Interrupted. That was her only Oscar win. She was nominated for Changeling and some other stuff she's been nominated for, if I recall. She will be nominated for an Oscar for Maria. I haven't seen a lot of the Oscar Beatty kind of movies yet. I think there's a movie called Honora I still have yet to see, but if she wins the Oscar, I wouldn't be mad because she is fantastic as Maria Callas. The music is very stirring. The flashback sequences, which, as Eric has pointed out in past reviews, sometimes flashbacks can be a crutch to a movie, or even you're talking about hamslime@gmail.com. It could hamstring a lot of narratives and make it really bad. But I think the flashbacks here in Maria are fantastic. The movie is shot on film. So Eric, if you want to look at a visually beautiful movie, even though a lot of it is set in the apartment, it does branch out to so many different things as well throughout the story.
What's the soundtrack like? Do they play like My Maria by Brooks and Dunn or Maria by Blondie?
Right, or Maria from West Side Story. Yeah. Well, it's Maria Callas. They call her La Callas because she is the diva, the grand diva of them all. And this is a very operatic performance by Jolie in many ways, and it's also very subtle. I don't think I've seen Jolie better, to be honest. I mean, well, she was in this movie years ago called Gia. I remember loving that as well. she's a great actress and she delivers just top tier work on Maria. Whether or not you love opera, you might end up enjoying opera more after seeing Maria, but I think one of the things that you can't deny is how great her performance is in this movie. We also have to mention the power of the dog actor Cody Smith-McPhee co-stars in this movie as a journalist who interviews Maria Callas on her final days. And also wanted to also mention that this movie is, a lot of it is in flashback and a lot of it is sort of a Twilight Zone episode, because you're wondering, Maria, she is weakened in her final week. You're actually wondering as a viewer if Maria is imagining a lot of the things that are transpiring, during the day. So it has that play on what is real and what is not real on Maria. Very layered film, solid screenplay by Stephen Knight, great confident direction from Pablo Larraín, and of course, most importantly, just an Oscar-nominated and Oscar-worthy performance from Angelina Jolie. Maria, my rating for this movie is, I loved it through and through. I think one of the only just caveats, not caveats, one of the things that might hold people back is it might be a little bit too long in the tooth for some, but every single minute I was locked in with Maria. 5 stars. 5 stars for me for Maria. I'm going to look at Rotten Tomatoes to see what the ratings are. I think it's not as high, but I'm just so locked in with Maria. Now, Eric Holmes, you have a movie called Heavier Trip, which I am so sad that I did not get to watch Heavier Trip. I did see Heavy Trip for Bruce Purkey's recommendations the first time around, and I loved it. Heavier Trip, what can you tell us about this movie, Eric?
It's just as good as the first one.
What is it about? How does it follow?
Heavy Trip is this metal band in Norway, I think, Sweden, perhaps. They get the band together. They get this opportunity to play this festival. A bunch of hijinks happen on the way there.
What's the name of the band?
Impaled Rectum. Impaled Rectum. But anyway, they play the festival. I think they play I can't remember how the first one ends, but either way, they end up in prison. So with Heavier Trip, starts off, they're in prison. They're playing in front of some inmates, some just really slow, quiet, quaint, boring music. One of the security, the jail security, what do they call them?
Wardens.
Not the warden. The warden's like the top guy, but the security guys. Anyway, one of them's watching them. They're playing the quaint music, and then they leave. And then Impaled Rectum looks at each other and it's like, all right, the cat's away, the mice will play. And then they start playing some metal music, and it sounds rad. And then they come back, and then there's this whole riot thing going on. Basically, so they're in prison. They get this festival promoter comes in and wants them to play a festival. And they're like, sounds good, dude, but I don't know if you noticed, we're in prison. And he's like, and then, that happens. So now they got to break out of prison and try to get to this festival. And I guess that's it. And that's the very basic version of it. But it goes a lot other places. But this movie's hilarious. I want to say this one part. There's a certain person that helps them escape from prison. That person that reads people really well. That part was freaking hilarious. I can't remember Zyrtex or whatever. The bass player. I don't know how to pronounce his name. His character is hilarious. His character was hilarious in the first one because he's like the guy that's like Zytrex, I think, or whatever his name is. The guy that wears the corpse paint all the time. He's like the metal purist. And do I even say this? He comes across a band that he's trying to pretend that he doesn't like, but his feet start tapping with good reason because his band's rad. I don't know, Greg. You know who the band is because I mentioned it in the
right, yeah,
the thing. I don't know if I want to mention it here because when they popped up, I was like, oh my god, this is awesome, and that just brought it up a whole extra star for me.
You can mention the band name because the plot synopsis they actually mention that band, so you can definitely.
Okay, well, so the band's Baby Metal, and it was a little more than just a cameo because Baby Metal shows up. I'm like, oh, that's cool, Baby Metal's in this, and then they pop up again. And then they pop up again later. They pop up throughout the movie, and so they're not main characters. So it's still kind of a cameo, but they show up enough where I'm pretty excited about that, and the fact that they even had Baby. And It's funny watching the Zide tracks because like he's watching Baby Metal and it's like someone comes up behind him, they see him watching Baby Metal and it's like, so you like him? He's like, no, they're corporate bubblegum pop music. This is not real music. It's like, oh, okay, well, anyway, I'm gonna go this way. He's like, yeah, I'll come with you. He turns around and they stop. It's that bit in Psycho Gorman. It's like, I do not like honky boys, or do I? But just watching him like slowly fall in love with Baby Metal was awesome. A lot of the movie is the band kind of falling apart because the singer wants to make certain concessions that at first the rest of the band, except for Zertrax, is into. Zertrax like, no, this is not the pure way to go. We're not doing this. And then that's kind of the back and forth. And then eventually the band starts to dissolve or is threatened to dissolve. But also they have that lady that was the security in prison. She's also the one tasked to chase them down and bring them back to the prison. That's all plot stuff, though. The reason you go to this is the comedy, and the comedy's on point. It's got some craziness to it, but it also has a lot of, you can tell that the filmmakers dig metal because there's, when you see a movie about some sort of thing, and the movie's either good or bad, but like people that are into that thing will pick up details that the general public won't.
Sure.
But it's still kind of cool because the people that know about it like pick up on those details. There's lots of that in here. The music's great. It's really stupid and over the top a lot of the times, and I love that. And yeah, Heavy Trip, good stuff. Probably give it a 4 stars, but Baby Metal gives it a full star bump, so we're going 5 stars on Heavier Trip.
5 stars from Eric Holmes for Heavier Trip. It is in theaters and digital November 29th. This is a movie I'm definitely looking forward to checking out. Finally, our 4th movie this week, coming out on Hulu November 29th, is a film called Nutcrackers. Quote, Nutcrackers follows straight-laced and work-obsessed Mike, played by Ben Stiller, as he is suddenly thrust into being a caregiver for his rambunctious, orphaned nephews. The movie is directed by David Gordon Green. The film is shot actually on film. And what's interesting is this is one of those movies that you feel would have been released in the late 80s, early 90s, one of these feel-good family comedies. And that's exactly what you're going to get. Mike, again, played by Ben Stiller, he comes off as a little bit of a you-know-what at the beginning of the film. He is really into his work. He has some kind of deal closing, and he works in Chicago. He has a deal closing which should net him some really good money or a really good promotion. He's been working on this big property deal for the last 6 years. And then with the death of his sister, his estranged sister, there's 4 young nephews who are now in his care. And he has to go out there in the middle of this small town, and his sister and his brother-in-law, they both died, okay? And they own this farm. And the kids, they are nutcrackers, meaning they are troublemakers. When he goes there, the farm, the house, it's in disarray. No one wants to take it. No one wants to really foster them. So Mike's job during that initial weekend is to foster his nephews. He wants to find them a new home so he can get back to Chicago and continue to do his life and his career. Eric, what do you think happens at Nutcrackers? What do you think happens at the end of the movie?
Someone gets their nuts cracked.
Okay. So Nutcrackers is a play on the Nutcracker Suite because his late sister was a talented ballet dancer, and she was also a ballet teacher. She had her own ballet school in the town, and now that she's passed, that brick and mortar ballet company that she founded is shut down. And the thing is, well, his nephews are supposedly, it's not a big spoiler, they are very influenced by their late mother, and they may have ballet chops as well. So there is a little bit of ballet in Nutcrackers. Linda Cardellini, my bad. She plays the person who is a social worker who is trying to tell Mike, hey, be nice to your nephews, be sort of a real good uncle, and then help them find a good home. So she's sort of the nice person, nice social worker who ends up being a part of their lives as well. It's a very predictable movie. You're going to know exactly what happens at the end. There is no Nutcrackers. It's a feel-good comedy drama. The thing is, the comedy itself is not laugh out loud funny. it's really not that funny one bit. But I actually did laugh out loud literally once or twice. So there are some funny moments in Nutcrackers, but where this movie actually excels at is the drama. The story itself is well done. Ben Stiller hasn't been in a movie for several years, so liked watching him again in a film. He's been off as a filmmaker. And David Gordon Green, I haven't seen a film by him in years because I haven't watched those Halloween movies, didn't watch that Exorcist film. So I think the last David Gordon Green movie I saw was maybe he directed the Sandra Bullock film called Our Brand is Crisis, I think. And then another movie called with Al Pacino, which I think is one of the more underrated Al Pacino movies. Gonna get that in a second. I forgot what that name was.
Manglehorn?
Yes, Manglehorn. Yes,
that was David Gordon Green.
Yeah, and David Gordon Green also did, I think, a movie called Joe, which it has one of Nicolas Cage's best performances. So that is a David Gordon Green I know, and Nutcrackers to me is sort of a harkening back to those David Gordon Green movies. It's not that harkening back to his Halloween or Exorcist films, which I have no opinion left or right about or up and down about or Blumhouse about, because I have not seen any of those movies.
Oh, Stronger with Jake Gyllenhaal.
Very good. Okay, so Stronger was in the middle of that whole Blumhouse era. But so, yeah, ever since Stronger, not too much from David Gordon Green as far as this ilk. These type of movies like George Washington, which a movie that Eric loves called Snow Angels. I mean, he's done some really interesting movies.
That one's rough, but it's good.
Yeah, I know you've mentioned over the years how much you really enjoyed quote unquote enjoyed Snow Angels. Does it reach the levels of those type of, like, I love All the Real Girls. Does it reach those levels? Not really, because it's not intended to reach those levels. It's a feel good family comedy.
Is this shot film? Is this like a situation kind of like a High Fidelity, where like when High Fidelity came out, it was like marketed as this comedy, and it's got funny parts, but that's not why High Fidelity lasts. It lasts because of the drama and the characters. Is that kind of what this is?
100% correct. Not on the level of High Fidelity, but you're on the right track, Eric. There is the first maybe quarter of the movie. There is those you see these kids getting into trouble, and you see them they're delinquents at times, but they're lovable delinquents. You've seen it before. The comedy stuff, it's there, but really, what nailed it for me for Nutcrackers was the actual family drama behind it. That said, I've seen it before, and it's harmless enough. I'm giving it 3.5 out of 5 stars because it's one of these movies that you might not see again. You might not remember Nutcrackers in a year from now, but that's not so bad because while you're watching it, it's a holiday movie. By the third act, you're gonna, I don't know, I didn't shed any tears on this movie, but it'll make you feel good. It is predictable, and wait till you see Bruce Purkey's review. I checked it out. Bruce Purkey is not so kind on Nutcrackers. Listen to CinemAddicts later on this episode to hear his review of Nutcrackers. But again, 3.5 stars for me. Nutcrackers will be on Hulu starting November 29th. All right, that is it. The 4 movies. Oh, by the way, our Patreon for the month of December is the year 2004. So please, for a $5 cash doll on our Patreon or our Apple Podcast subscriptions, which I still haven't started, please join. That's a great way to support all 3 of us here on CinemAddicts. Final thoughts, Eric? Just comments before you're off to work.
Killing Them Softly. Oh, wait, yes. No, that was a Patreon.
Well,
but you know what? I'm going to have to, when doing the Patreon, reminded me that I have to go back and try to attempt to watch Killing Me Softly again.
Killing Me Softly is a song. Eric, the movie that you were thinking about was The Last Journey. There's a movie, listeners, called The Last Journey. It's Sweden's selection for the best international feature. I put that link for Eric and Bruce to watch next week for CinemAddicts episode 271, possibly if they want to see it. Okay. But there are other movies next week we are covering. There is a movie called Day of the Fight. It's a black and white boxing movie, Eric. You might be interested in that. There's another film called Devil's Stay, which I have not seen. We've not gotten screener links for, but we got screener links for this movie called Getaway and Sujo as well. And I'm also going to be reviewing this movie called The Order, starring Nicholas Hoult and Jude Law.
So right, just to clarify, Reinas was also submitted for Best International Film from their respective. Okay.
From Switzerland.
Right. Yeah. The one, when you mentioned that other one, it was like, that the Last Journey, that was the one that exactly I thought was the thing, but
right. And
now it's that.
And for all these movies, we're covering so many movies. My suggestion is, if you want to check out a very good feel good movie that unlike, look, no, I'm not throwing shots at Nutcrackers, but I think The Last Journey will stick with you. So it's one of those tear-jerking type of movies, and I hope, who knows, I hope either you and Bruce get to see it on a recommend or a rewind next week for episode 271. Yeah. And I hope eventually you get to see Killing Them Softly. That'll be very, very good.
Yeah, yeah, hopefully. I mean, every other attempt has been thwarted, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, check out Reinas, Heavier Trip. Reinas is really good drama. Heavier Trip is just stupid, funny, well, stupid and hilarious, really. And Baby Metal shows up, so yeah, do it to it, Lars. It's good stuff.
All right, thank you guys so much for listening to us this week on CinemAddicts, or on all the weeks you listen to us, for subscribing and whatnot. If you want an ad-free of this episode, of all our episodes, join us on our Patreon or subscribe to our CinemAddicts YouTube channel. We have our ad-free episodes there as well. And happy Thanksgiving to people stateside. We're celebrating Thanksgiving this weekend. Finally, before we get to Bruce Purkey and the Cinem-Attic, here's Claire.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you for joining CinemAddicts.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the ultimate kids' table on Thanksgiving, the Cinem-Attic. You do have to climb a ladder with some really rickety rungs to get up to the Cinem-Attic. But once you get here, we talk about movies. A few movies this week, not too many. Why are there not as many movies this week? Well, because the other movies are hidden in our Patreon. This week we do a Patreon episode on the year 2000, and we do the movies Croupier, which I had never seen before, but I'd heard the name a lot, but I really didn't know what it was. I always kind of thought it was like a James Bond knockoff, and there's a reason for that, but we will get into that when we get into the details of a Croupier on the Patreon. We also do the movie Chopper, which I've seen once before and is much loved by Anderson in the Film Vault, and I remember having pretty good memories of it. So we'll get to those in our Patreon. So if you don't have our Patreon membership, $5 a month, catch all. You can get everything on there. You get our you get our monthly year reviews. So usually we'll pick a year. This time is 2000, pick a year, get a couple movies from that year, talk about some trivia from that year. So you get a bonus episode essentially for the month. You also get a bunch of interviews. You get early releases of the basic shows, and sometimes you get some spoiler stuff over there as well. It's all the stuff that Greg kind of puts together. So check out Patreon if you haven't so far. All right, this week, the week of Thanksgiving, I only have a couple of movies that are not in the Patreon, and I'm sure they have a bunch more for you that you've already listened to, but I'm going to talk about Heavier Trip, the sequel to Heavy Trip, and a Christmas movie called Nutcrackers, directed by David Gordon Green. Okay, Heavier Trip. Heavier Trip is something I was pretty excited for, but also a little bit hesitant for, because like any sequel to a movie you love, it's very likely that it won't hit the mark. It'll be terrible. It'll be just a cheap ripoff, a pale imitation. That's what everyone worries about when you have a movie you really love and they do a sequel of it. Now, for anyone out there who hasn't seen Heavy Trip, which is a lot of people probably, we did have a discussion of it on this show. I am a champion of Heavy Trip. It's this Finnish black metal comedy. I kind of always describe it as sort of the Wayne's World of black metal, where you have this band of kind of losers that are all wanting to be metal stars, black metal stars in Finland, trying to get to this Nordic metal festival, and they really don't even have any original songs, and they're on a shoestring hanging in there, and our main guy is kind of the loser guy. There's a bunch of stuff in it, and it's got all the tropes of kind of the band that could, a little band that's got a lot of things going against them, and maybe they're going to make it to the final concert and prove to people how awesome they are. And that's Heavy Trip, and I think the advantage it has is it has that kind of making of, the formation of the beginning of the lore for this band, like where all of the little things come from. And I think that discovery and the fun of finding all the characters in the band and what happens to them and how they have to get characters when one character is gone and what happens to the character who's gone, all that stuff just really adds a ton of charm to it, makes it just one of my favorite kind of, rock and roll movies. Now, Heavier Trip, not quite as good, but still a lot of fun. Now, both these movies are pretty goofy and pretty pretty tame for a black metal comedy, because you could imagine black metal stuff getting super dark. Neither of these movies gets really that dark. And I'm sure that some, true face-melting fans would find it a little too safe. But I think some of the charm of it, the idea that these guys are, and black metal in general is such a scary, dark mythology that it's got around it, and dangerous and all this stuff. The fact that they're kind of these dorky dudes kind of really lines up for me a little more with the truth behind a lot of metalheads and people into that kind of stuff, having really been into metal in the early 80s. So for me, it really works. Now, Heavier Trip, story-wise, doesn't work quite as much. It starts out with them in prison based on what happens in the first movie. So essentially this movie is about them getting the band back together and trying to make it again. So there's a little bit of that kind of retread feel to it. They have somebody who's after them. You got to kind of, meet all of our old characters again. Luckily, we have all of the same cast as far as the main band members. I don't remember. I'm not going to say their name because I don't know. We're behind. It's a name that Greg might want to bleep out. Okay, I'll say it once. He can bleep it out if he gets this far into my review. Impaled Rectum, because I thought it was one of the toughest metalist names they could come up with. This is much more tropey in the sense of it's more about, big music producers trying to co-opt a member of a band that already exists and, remake them into a form that's much more palatable to the masses, and making them all kind of give up their true values as metalheads and kind of become more commercial. So there's all that kind of stuff going on, and they're going to try to go to Wacken, which is this big German metal festival, which really exists, I do believe. I've heard of Wacken before, but even them, the guys in the band, they think like, well, this we want to go to this festival, but it's too commercial for us. We're underground. We're the real metal, that kind of a thing. But all that being said, it kind of becomes a little bit of a road movie again, where they're kind of trying to get to Wacken. They're trying to keep the gig. They're getting chased by somebody. There's various strife with the band, and all of it is amiable, I would say, and very likable. Is it as good as the other one? Not quite. Is it as quite as fun as the other one? Is it quite as much discovery? No. Now, the things that really do work for me is there's a lot of great nods to actual metal stuff, which I'm sure that metalheads will get, and most people will get a little bit of it. But there's just silly things, like they go to this kind of very scruffy metal memorabilia museum near Wacken, and how some of that memorabilia is used in the show in this movie is kind of fun. But probably the best thing in this movie, and it was one of the best things in the last movie, but I feel the last movie was more rounded as far as there was a lot of stakes and a lot of fun for all of the band members. And in this one, where it's supposed to be about Turo, who's like the lead singer, in the first one, it really worked because it was like he was just such a loser, and him trying to kind of find his voice and his way, literally and figuratively, really got you behind him, as well as the other band members. And here, he is already kind of there, so he doesn't have as much to do. Whereas Zertrax, who is the stereotypical, face painted, white face, black, eye stuff that you see in black metal guys, especially Nordic. He has the outfit and everything, very gothic, leathery, studs and spikes and stuff. He is so interesting and much more fun than every character every time he's on screen, that I started to feel throughout the movie like I really wish it was his story throughout. And there's a whole subplot, and I kind of get Wayne's World and Wayne's World 2, whereas Wayne's World 2 had all these cameos. This one doesn't have quite as many as that, but it does have a great cameo by Baby Metal, and the growing infatuation of Zertrax with Baby Metal. And if you know him, he's the darkest, blackest metal guy. Like everything he likes has to be true, pure metal, full street cred. He can't like anything pop or weak, or, he has to kind of put on that facade, and he kind of prides himself on this arcane knowledge of metal, and he's very unhumor. He doesn't have any humor, just straight face, and he doesn't take it lightly. His metal is his life. He believes it all. And the way he walks through this movie is so great. And then the fact that he starts to become a little bit infatuated with this pop Japanese metal girl group called Baby Metal, which does exist. If you haven't looked them up, they're pretty famous for that. In fact, Gimme Chocolate is the one that I think they play in the movie, and probably their most famous song, but they have a lot of other pretty great ones. The fact that he becomes infatuated, he doesn't even want to admit it to himself, with Baby Metal, that whole subplot is a lot of fun. And it could have gone further as far as I'm concerned. The whole movie could have become Zertrax, path through life. Just watching him interact with the world would have been, I think, overall a better movie. All that being said, I still had a lot of fun with this movie. I would still give this, I'd probably give this 3.5 stars. Whereas the other movie, I think, if I remember correctly, I put it up like 4.5 or 5 stars. I just love it. This movie, I like. If it was on, I'm not turning it off. I'll watch it. This is definitely one of those kind of, you can drop in, drop out kind of movies. Dumb fun. For me, it works mostly. So 3.5 stars for Heavier Trip. Directed by, I didn't write his, I don't know if I can say his name, Yuso Latio. I might have said that totally wrong. Sorry, Yuso. That's your name. Okay. The other movie I'll review for this episode, only 2 movies, sorry guys, is Nutcrackers. Directed by David Gordon Green, who has become famous lately, or infamous, depending on your point of view, for just making or destroying, depending on your point of view, legacy sequels to legacy horror franchises. So he did the trilogy of new Halloween movies, which are pretty much hated by most people. Okay, the weird thing about that trilogy is I feel like everybody likes one of the trilogy and then hates the other 2. I like the first one okay. I don't like the second one at all. And I like the third one, which everyone thinks is like the worst thing ever put on film with Halloween related. I like it because it's just like the biggest troll movie ever existing in a franchise almost. It's like, as I said before, it's a terrible Halloween movie, but kind of a really fun movie and kind of rivals Halloween 3 for me. Okay, we're not talking about Halloween though. He also did Exorcist sequel, prequel, remake, whatever. People hated that thing so much that he got kicked off the franchise, and I think now it's been handed over to someone else. It might have even been handed over to the dude that does all the Netflix. Anyway, we're getting just sidetracked here. Nutcrackers, starring Ben Stiller, Linda Cardellini, which you probably know either from the Scooby-Doo live action movies or Geeks and Freaks. She was so fantastic in Geeks and Freaks. If you never watched that, go back and watch it. One of the best series about teenage life ever put in front of our eyes. And a whole bunch of Toby Huss has a small part in this, which we love. Tim Heidecker has a tiny role. Anyway, it's mainly Ben Stiller. It's mainly his show. So what is the concept of this movie? It's a Christmas movie, first of all. It starts out and essentially the Ben Stiller, I'm just going to call him Ben Stiller, it's easier. Ben Stiller character his sister has died, and he finds out that he's going to go off to basically her estate, which is essentially this farmhouse out in the country, and he's supposed to help kind of deal with the estate, but also she has 3 kids left behind because her husband had already been dead. So the kids only had their mother, and now that their mother, his sister, has passed away, there's no one to take care of these kids. They're going to basically have to be put into foster care. That's the Linda Cardellini character. She's kind of the social worker that's kind of taking care of, getting these kids into some sort of a home setting. Anyway, he rolls up, and I didn't even quite understand how this is supposed to happen, but basically it's like, oh yeah, you get to take care of these kids. Here you go. And it's just such a sitcom movie kind of situation where like he just kind of accepts that, and it's kind of taken in face value that, okay, you're going to take care of these kids until we can find someone for them. Good luck with that. I don't see there's anything legally binding him to do that. He could easily just be like, yeah, no, I'm not. I don't have any kids and I have a life. Figure it out. I mean, that would be horrible. That would be very uncaring for a set of kids, but also it isn't really, his situation. Anyway, he rolls up to this farmhouse, and this is where this movie goes into straight. There's a kind of movie, especially in the 80s and 90s, probably the late 80s more than the 90s. These kind of movies, Uncle Bucky kind of things, where it's just like they set these super high stakes, super outrageous kind of social situations, and you just kind of go with them. So I guess your love of this movie or not love of this movie will kind of be if you go with it. But when he rolls up, these kids are like, they look almost like Hanson, the band Hanson, not the brothers from Slapshot. They look like the brothers Hanson from the band that did Bop in the late 90s, if I remember correctly, 98, 97, 99, somewhere in that range. They look like them, but they act like it's like the prequel to the Family and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It's like these kids are like not only bad, but they're like psychotically, unrealistically bad, where he rolls up and, they're one of them standing there with a rabbit mask tilting its head like they're in a horror movie, and they're just destroying everything, and there's pigs and other animals living in the house. It's just outrageous, and you're like, oh, their parents must have been terrible. But as the movie goes on, it's like, no, their parents were fine. Their parents might have been like a little quirky. They might have been a little kind of on the hippie, maybe granola-y, outcasty sort of side. But from all accounts, they were great, loving parents that the kids loved and cared for, and the parents cared for them. But for whatever reason, these kids have become total hellions. I don't know what caused them to be that way, but you're just supposed to accept it. And since it's a Christmas movie and a Ben Stiller movie, I mean, I don't know if we can predict what might happen. Like, he doesn't like kids. He has no reason to have them. He doesn't want to care for them at all. So might they learn to love him, and might he learn to love them? I mean, that would be unbelievable if that happened, right? I mean, there's a whole subplot with them being into ballet because the mom had a ballet studio. So they've written their own version of the Nutcracker. Nutcrackers. Will that come into play at some point? Might there be a version of their version of the Nutcracker? I hated this movie. Oh my God. I hated this movie so much. The kids are terrible. They're not good actors. They're distracting every moment they're on screen. I don't like them at all. Sorry kids, whoever you are in real life. It feels like, you're talking about Nepo babies. This feels like this is someone producer or writer's kids, and they just got, hey, let's make them the kids, and they threw them in the movie, and then we have to suffer even more than Ben Stiller appears to. We have to suffer with them and the unfunny comedy and their horrible, annoying, ridiculous antics through the whole movie. So I'm Scrooge. Realistically, this is just a meh movie. Realistically, this is a movie that is like fine. You'll either like it a little bit or you won't like it a little bit. I don't think anybody is going to love this movie, or I guess somebody will love this movie, but this is not a movie that hardly anybody's going to love. You're going to be middle of the road on this movie, most people. But if it hits you the wrong way, like it hit me, you will hate this movie because you will suffer through. I think this took me 3 days to watch the whole thing. I kept going back to it and watching like 20 or 30 minutes of it at a time. And that's about all I could stomach. And like I said, the comedy's unfunny. I like Ben Stiller when he's directing himself most of the time. And I like him in a lot of things. And I know people have a gripe against Ben Stiller and his comedy, kind of like they do with Will Ferrell. I have nothing against Ben Stiller. I enjoy his comedy. But this movie, no, this feels like late stage Jim Carrey or I don't know, Tooth Fairy era Rock, or like one of those just painful, let's make a heartwarming kid-based holiday movie that's just, it's horrible. Will I give it less than 1 star? I'll give it 1 star. I'm not sure. I guess the production qualities are pretty good, and Linda Cardellini is awesome. Okay, that's it. 1 star for Linda Cardellini for existing in this movie. I'm sorry that she was in there, but she made it better because she was there. So, and Toby Huss is always good to see too. So that's 2 stars. No, 1 star. Half a star for each of them. We'll stay with 1 star total for this movie. All right, that's all I got this week, guys. I know it's not a lot, but Heavier Trip is at least worth looking out for you guys. Some of you will enjoy it quite a bit. And who knows, some of you might enjoy Nutcrackers. I think it's coming out on Hulu probably today or tomorrow. So it'll probably be splashed all over their beginning screen, and it'll look like a Christmas movie. And some of you will be duped into it. And some of you will decide that you were sorry you did. Anyway, here we go. Talk to you soon.